Daf Yudam at base will begin Yudam at Aleph, 4 lines from the bottom. Tani Levi, Mavi Shurachav Esri Mama. So we said that a mavoi that is the entranceway, the opening is 20 amas, more than 20 amas wide. So that is not considered a Pesach anymore. That's considered to be that it's porous. You can't be mattered with a lechi. So if you have such an opening, noitz kana b'emtziyosa v'tanya. So all you have to do is put a post in the middle, and that's sufficient. And by putting a post in the middle, you have 2 sections of 10 each, and you can be matred with a lechi. Each one has its own lechi, so that should be sufficient. Hu tanila v'hu amarla. So he taught it, but he said on that, Ein halacha kaisa mishnah. But that's not the halacha. We do not paskin that way. He says, no, that's not acceptable. We don't paskin that way because we have a principle of the avira the high gisa, v'avira the high gisa is mevatal a mechitza. So if you have it in this case over here where you have the post in the middle, it has air, it has open space on each side, and it nullifies the post. So therefore, that's not a viable option. So you can't use that. So what is the proper way to do it? El hechi of it. What do you do? Amar Shmuel Mishmei de Levi, Oisa Paskavoya Asara b'meshech arba amas. Umamid al arka shel mavi. What you do is you take a board that has thickness and it's 10 high, and you place it over here, and it extends into the mavui. It extends into, now if this is 4 amas, then if that's the case, then these are considered to be 2 distinct mavuis. You're not just splitting up an entranceway. These are considered to be 2 distinct mavuis. Because since this is 4 amas, each one, this is 4 amas, this is an area that's 4 amas. So these are 2 separate areas. So then you have 1 entranceway, so each one will have its own lechi. So you have 2 separate entranceways, you make a lechi on this side and make a lechi on this side. You have 2 separate mavuis since this is 4 amas deep. That's how you rectify it. Inamik Rav Yehuda, or another alternative is like Rav Yehuda said, Dam Rav Yehuda Mavish Yirachav Chamesh Esrei Ama. If you have a mavoi where the opening is 15 amas, so it's not 20 amas, but if it's 15 amas, it's still too wide. It's more than 10. So if you have an mavoi that's 15 amas, marchik shtei amas v'oitzapas shalosh amas. So what he does is he has to minimize the entranceway. So he's marchik 2 amas from one side, and then he takes a pass which is 3 amas wide. Takes a board which is 3 amas wide. So by doing that, this is only 2 amas. This is 3 amas wide, this board. So what you have over here is you have a wall with an entranceway. This is only 2 amas. So this is an entranceway. So this is considered to be closed over here. This is closed. Then you have a separate entranceway, since the entire width of this is 15 amas. Then you have a separate entranceway here, which is 10. So this is a regular Pesach. So then you just make a lechi on that side. So by doing that, you can effectively close off and minimize the opening, which is too wide. So that's the way you can, these are the 2 eitzes that you can do it. Correct the Gemara, why does Rabbi Yehuda give this eitz? Why does he say it this way? Yasapas amul mersa. Why not just do 1.5? A pas is 1.5. Yarchik shtei amas yasapas amav mersa. why not just have a distance of 1.5? Why do we say that he has to do it in this way? Why not say rather that you make a pas which is 1.5 and make a distance of 2 amas and do another pas which is 1.5? Why isn't that a better solution? Instead of having the wide one, why not have a board which is 1.5? So at the end of the wall, there's a space of there's a board of 1.5. Then there's a space of 2, and then there's another 1.5. So if you have it that way, then you have 1.5, a space of 2, and another 1.5. That's a total enclosure of 5. And you effectively have the same thing. So you have 1.5, 2, 1.5. So you have an enclosure of 5. Why didn't he set it up in that way? Why wasn't that an eitzah? So can we infer from the fact that he didn't that Shema Mina Oimed Meruba ala Paratz Mishtei Ruchais Lo Yahave Amud? Now, from the fact that he didn't say that, why can we infer, and we have the principle of Oimed Meruba ala Paratz, that the closed area has to be more than the open area. Now, over here, well, it is more than the open area, but that's only if you combine the two boards, the 1.5, the 1.5, and it's 3. But if you don't combine the two, then the gap is 2. It's more than either board. So can we infer from that Ayman Merubal HaParetz has to be on each way on its own, not by combining the two sides? If you only have Ayman Merubal HaParetz by combining two sides, the boards on each side of the gap, then that's not considered Ayman Merubal HaParetz. It has to be that each side on its own is more than the open space. So in the previous scenario, where we had the board was 3 and the gap was 2, then it is more. But by doing it in this way, it's only by combining the two boards that we have Merubal HaParetz. So can we infer that? Can we infer that halacha? Because if this would be a viable alternative, they would probably prefer, Rashi explains, not to have to create a board of 3 amas, which is more difficult. They'd rather have 2 smaller boards and construct it that way. So from the fact that we didn't give this eitzah, let us therefore infer that we do not say you cannot combine the two sides to make Ayman Merubal HaParetz. The Gemara says no, you cannot infer that. Lo Elam Emalach Aymed. I'll tell you really Aymed that really I'll tell you that it is considered an Aymed, even though it's from two sides. The problem over here is that if you would have that eitzah, then you'd say that the avir on each side would be mevatlet. The reason why we don't say that is because if you're going to say it's 1.5 and 1.5, then that means the space is 2. That means the space is larger than the enclosed area. Then you'd say the air, we can't enclose this because the air on each side, the open space on each side, will nullify the board. So since I have air, I have open space on each side, I have to have one side where the Aymed is larger than the open space, so in order to enclose this side, and then I don't have a vir of a high gisa. But otherwise, perhaps I'll tell you that it is an alternative. Well, why is there still another alternative? Vyasa pas ama, vyarchik ama, vyasa pas ama, vyarchik ama, vyasa pas ama. Why doesn't he do a series of these? And he should be able to do a series of these types of things, and therefore we would say that this should be a different eitzah, have smaller boards, have each one is an amma, the board is an amma, and the space is an amma. So you only have an amma on each side, and then take another board of an amma and put it next to it. And have a series of a board, amma, that's 2, and a board is 3, a space is 4, and another board is 5. And then you've enclosed your 5, you've enclosed the 5 ammas, and then you only have an opening of 10. Now, why wasn't that an alternative? So, can we infer from that, Shema mina oimed kipporetz also? Now, we say that can't be that the pores is greater than the Amud. The Amud, the closed area, has to be more than the pores. Well, let's say they're equal. Let us infer from this, well, since the closed area and the open area are equal, then it does not make it a closed area. It's not considered, it's not deemed to be an enclosed area. Let's say that when we say Ayman Maruban al Paras, it means Davka that the Ayman has to be more than the Paras, but it can't be equal, since we didn't give this Eitzah. Mar said, no, Loila me malach muta. The shiny hachad asavir the haigisa, haigisa mavatala. Similar over here also, normally I tell you it would be sufficient, but because since I have the open space on this side, and I have open space on each side, it's mevatel it, and it nullifies it. But otherwise, maybe it would be sufficient. Frak the Gemara, still another eitzah. V'yarchik ama v'yasa pas ama u'mechsa. V'yarchik ama v'yasa pas ama u'mechsa. Well, okay, so then make it that the closed area is more. So when you say v'yarchik ama v'yasa pas ama u'mechsa, have an amma space, and then have this as 1.5, and then an open space, and then another 1.5. So you'll have your enclosed area is more, the boards are more than the air space, and therefore you say that this entire area is closed off, and you don't have avir the haigis mavalta because each board is more than the space next to it. And why can't you close it off that way? And Rashi points out that this would be a better solution because instead of having one open area of 2 ammas, you'd have 2 smaller areas, and therefore you won't have that big of a gap, and that would be a better solution. Not that we're inferring any new halachas from this, but why isn't this a better solution? Because it would minimize the width of an opening. You don't have a large opening of 2 ammas. Whereas it's Einachanami, Einachanami is a good eitzah, but the Rabbanan wasn't my triach person, didn't trouble him to do this, so he gave these other eitzahs. But in Chanami, this would be a good eitzah, even a preferred eitzah. Frank the Gemara, but still, why is this an alternative? Why are we not concerned, if we have this type of an eitzah, why aren't we concerned that people will go through this opening here and not go through this opening over here? Maybe they'll just go through this one over here, and they'll leave the other one, they'll abandon it, and go through the small entranceway. And therefore this will be no longer considered to be a Pesach. The only reason that this kind of a space is permitted is because it's a Pesach. But if people use this area, not this area, it's no longer a Pesach, and therefore it's considered a Pirza, and it should be therefore Asur the Mavli. The Gemara says that no, we're not concerned. Amar Ravada Bar Masna Chazaka Ein Adam Meniach Pesach Godel V'Nichlas Pesach Katan. It's a Chazaka. People are not going to go and be matchik themselves and squish themselves in the small when they have the big one. So they're not going to abandon the big Pesach. So we don't have that concern. Well, why is it different in the case? So we said before, Ravami Ravasi, we had a case that if you have a mavui that has a pirza and it's broken open, so it's broken open near the front, right near the front, on the side, right near the front it's broken open, and therefore people have an option of coming in through the side instead of coming in. Actually, it's more like this. If there's a pirza near the front on the side, so people have an option of coming in this way. Instead of coming in this way, they can come in this way. So they therefore say that nullifies the Pesach, and you can't be matcha this mavli. If people can come in through the side, if they can come in through the side way over here, then this will nullify. If they come in this way, it nullifies the Pesach over here, and therefore you can't be matcha this mavli. Why is that different? Why don't we say a chazaka, they're not going to abandon the main Pesach and go through the small Pesach? More answers, that's different. Hasam kama might be a lucha, hachaloi kama might be a lucha. Over there, they're taking a shortcut. So if they take a shortcut, then we're concerned that people might want to take a shortcut and come in. If they're coming this way, instead of going around, we'll take just a shortcut. But if you're talking about that they're both at the front entrance, and both of the openings are on the front entrance, that they will abandon the large one and go through the small one, that we're not concerned. So therefore, this is a viable eitzah. So we're discussing Oimed Merubal Aparatz and Oimed Kipparatz. The more now brings it through in another discussion, where we can see what the halachas are in some of these other cases. Tanan Hasa. We learned in a Mishnah in Kalim or Ha'asla v'chalal shaloi, if you have the seat of a basic kisei. So the way it was constructed is they had the leather straps on two sides and then an opening in the middle. So the question is this considered to be one contiguous covering? If there is a mace or part of a mace underneath it, is this considered to be an oil? Is this considered to be an oil, and is it considered therefore covering, and it'll transfer the tumah to everything that's around underneath it? So ora asla v'chalal shaloi, the leather straps of the asla, of the seat, and the opening mitztarfen b'tefach, they combine together, and if they combine together to a tefach, and by combining the areas of the straps and the areas of the opening, if it combines to make up a tefach, then you have an oil, you have a gag, which has to have a minimum area of a tefach, and therefore it'll transfer the tumah. My or asla, what is nor asla? Amar Barchan, Amar B'Yechnan, or kisu shel basic kisei, the covering of a basic kisei. V'kama. So what are the dimensions? What's the width of the straps? What's the width of the opening? V'kama ki asar avdimi amar etzba'ayim mikan v'etzba'ayim mikan v'etzba'ayim revach b'emsa. You have a total of 6 etzbois, 2 fingers of strap on each side, 2, and a space of 2, and therefore you have another 2. That's a total of 6. So that's combined to 6, and that makes, therefore, you have a tefach and you have an oil, and therefore it's considered to be an oil. So those are the dimensions. Now, Tysus points out, well, why would this be acceptable? Why won't you say It's, yes, you have 2, 2, and 2, but why don't you say Avira the Haigisa, and Avira the Haigisa, you have space. On either sides of these straps, you have space. Now, we said before that Avira the Haigisa, is Mevatel the Mechitza, so why isn't Mevatel the Mechitza? So Taisa says that we're only concerned when we say Avir the Haigis is within the space that we're considering. The space that's outside the Asala, that space is not relevant. It's the space within the confined area. If you have a Pesach, so you're dealing with the area within the Pesach. What's outside the defined area, that's not of concern. Taisa also asks, well, why don't we say Lovud? We should say Lovud. And therefore, why do you need 2 and 2 and 2? Is as long as the space is less than 3, why don't we say Lovud and it's considered to be closed? So he says, Halach l'maysh misina, we do not apply the principle of Lovud by Tumas Mes. So that's the answer that he said, 2, 2, and 2. Ki also Ravin Omar, Esvo Mechsamikan, Vespa Revach Bamsa. He said, you don't need 2, 2, and 2, 1.5. 1.5, and 1 in the middle. So Esva Mechsamikan, the Esva Mechsamikan, the Esva Rav Bamsa, and therefore what you have is a total of 4. So Amalei Abayla Rav Dimi Mi Plagdisu said, are you arguing? Amalei Haba Ravsa Ha Bezutrosa, Veloy Plagina, and we don't argue because. Really, he says 4, but he's talking about thumbs. He's talking about wider etzbois. So there, you only need 4 to make up a tefach. I'm talking about the regular etzbois, and there you need 6. So we're not really arguing. You need a tefach. The question is, what etzbois are we talking about? We're talking about wider etzbois or not? But you need a tefach. So I said 2, 2, and 2. He said 1.5, 1.5, and 1, because he's talking about thumbs. You only need 4. Amrlei, Abai said, Lai, Plagisu, you're arguing. Because aside from that fact, you said 2, 2, and 2. He said 1.5, 1, and 1.5. But I'm in Merubal Aparas, Mishtei Ruchos Plagisu. Now, if you say 2, 2, and 2, you don't have Oimed Merubal Aparas, the space is 2, and the strap is 2. So the closed area is not more than the open area. We want to consider this to be one closed area in order to consider it to be an oil for tuma. Well, that means you have to have more closed area than open area. Now, this is 2 and the space is 2. It's the same. It's not more. It's only more if you combine the 2 sides. So then, it is a machlekes because you said 2, 2, and 2. That means it's only oimed merubal parts if you combine both sides. And now we say 1.5, 1, and 1.5, you have to have each strap, each side is more than the open area. So aside from the size of the etzbois, it's also machlokes if you can say, Oimed merubal al paras mishtei ruches. So that is the machlokes. L'didach hav oimed mishtei ruches. According to you, you say 2, 2, and 2, you can combine the 2 sides to make the Oimed merubal al paras. L'ravin, but he says 1.5, 1, and 1.5. That means that each side, the strap on each side, has to be wider than the open space. Because if you're going to say you don't argue, because if that's the case, Rabbi should have said the following: Esva shlish mikan, vesva shlish mikan, vesva shlish revach bamsa. Why should he have said that it's 1.5, 1, and 1.5? He should have made it equal. Just like you're saying it's equal to 2 and 2, he could have said 1 1/3, 1 1/3, 1 1/3, and make it equal. But he didn't make it equal. He made the strap on each side wider than the space. Rav Dimi says, Velamai plaginan. Elamai, you're going to say we do argue, and we're arguing on the point whether you can combine the 2 sides to say Oimed merubal aparetz. You can combine the 2 closed spaces, or not to say that it's more closed than open spaces. Well, if that's the case, then I should have said it in the following way: 1 and 2/3 esva on one side, and on the other side 1 and 2/3 and 2 in the middle. Then you'd be able to say, well, even though the closed on each side is less than the middle, it's only 1 2/3, and this is 2 2/3, but you can combine right and left, and it's more, the combined area, closed area, is more than the middle. And that would have illustrated the point clearly that that's a point of contention, that I'm saying that even though each side is narrower than the middle, you can combine it and it's considered closed, where you say not. But by saying it in this way, where I said 2, 2, and 2, and therefore he's saying, then the machlokes, if you're going to say we are, now I personally say we're not arguing. I say it's just a question of smallest boys, you need 6 boys, or largest boys, 4 boys. But you say that we're arguing, it's whether in their equal area. I say 2, 2, and 2. Now the sum total is over here is, now you have 2 closed, and you have 2 closed, and 2 in the middle. So you have more closed than open. Now you're saying that we said the case is talking where you had that it's an esba, you had an esba u'mechsa mikan, ve'esba u'mechsa mikan, ve'esba revach be'emsa, and that you have a esba revach be'emsa. Therefore, each side, you're saying that each side has to be more than the middle. It can't even be equal. You're saying that it's an esba u'mechsa mikan, and it's an esba u'mechsa mikan, and ve'esba u'mechsa mikan, and 1 in the middle. So it's 1 in the middle, means that each side is more than the middle. I'm saying it's 2, 2, and 2. Each side is the same as the middle. You're saying that each side has to be more than the middle. So it's a machlokes. If you say we're arguing, it's a machlokes. Do you say that it's oimed kipparot, that if they're equal, the closed area and the open area equal, it's considered closed? Or does it have to be more? Now you're saying that you can't combine the 2 sides. I'm saying if we argue, we're not arguing that point, that we both agree that you can't combine the 2 sides, if you say that we're arguing. But then the question is, if you take one side, this is 2 and the middle is 2, so they're the same. Then you would say, according to my approach, then it's, if you don't combine the 2 sides, you'd say I'm kippar, it's closed. According to you, no, that the middle has to be less than each side. The middle has to be less. Therefore, it's etzba u'mechsa mikan, and only an etzba in the middle, because you can't have oimed kipparot. It has to be oimed merubah leparot.